Hello, everyone. This is Mike from Dimensional Walking. And today I want to talk about aliens, ETs, and the Earth's climate change crisis. Let me start out by saying about 45, 50 years ago, I think it's closer to 50 actually, I was at college. I was at the University of Wisconsin, and I was studying to be a meteorologist, climatologist. Um, and so I was taking a lot of courses. I never became one, but I took a lot of courses initially, my first couple of years, to be a meteorologist. So I do have a pretty good background. My understanding of climate change is pretty powerful, I guess, in many ways. I've been doing it for a long time and keeping abreast of what's going on around the world. So about, again, going back, say about 45 years ago, when I my first couple of years in college, I had a mentor, advisor, and professor, Dr. Byer, his name was actually, and he was really quite the extraordinary climatologist. Um, every year or every couple of years, he would go to the Greenland and he would do ice coring. So he'd go down and with a team, and they would go and bring cores of ice back to the university, and they would analyze them, looking for signs of what happened in the past with our climate. So about, I guess it was in my second year, I happened to be in his office. He was my advisor, so I'd visit him on a periodic basis. And there I learned that, well, first of all, I was sitting there and he looked very depressed, or something looked really off. I guess in the end he was a little depressed, but something was off with him. And I quizzed him on it. I said, "Hey, Dr. Byer, what's wrong? What's going on?" And he kind of looked at me and says, "Well, Mike, um, I looked at analyzed some of the cores, and I'm seeing a very strange pattern." And the pattern he had done, he claims that it's been about I think he said 5 to 7 years since he had looked at the carbon dioxide. And I think what you do is basically there's little bubbles in there, microscopic bubbles, and they count them per square inch. And that kind of determined on a sliding scale how much carbon dioxide was in the atmosphere at a certain period of time. And you can go back, and I think he said that they went back, I think he said 5,000 years, actually, interesting enough, because these cores are pretty big, and they keep them in freezers and all this stuff, so they can go back and look at them at different days. So anyways, he said that he looked at some recent ones of the last 100 to 150 years that they had gotten previously, and he looked at the ones they just got. And what they saw is a very distinct pattern, that the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere had been increasing greatly in the last 150 years. And I don't know if he was the first scientist to realize this, but he was right there among one of the first. And so I sort of kind of witnessed in my own way the beginning of this study of climate change and what it meant to us. So anyways, with that said, that was kind of my start. That was my toe in the water, let's face it, about climate change. So fast forward to today. In fact, fast forward to 15 days ago, okay? So 15 days ago, here in Oregon, and we live, I guess, in an area that you would call the Cascade Foothills. We had a high temperature on one of 3 days that were extremely hot, of 117 degrees. Now, let me give you a little perspective. We here in Oregon at this time of the year, where we live, it's normally the high temperature is right around 80 degrees, very pleasant, very nice, typically low humidity, which also helps. But on this particular day, it was 117 degrees. I'll give you a little bit more perspective. That is 10 degrees hotter than the hottest temperature ever recorded here. 10 degrees. Think about that a minute. The record went from 107 now to 117. That is freaking huge. So I checked around, and I couldn't find anywhere where a temperature high or even a temperature low had ever dropped or risen by that percentage from the original high, in this case, 107 to 117. Never. So I guess what I'm saying, that was a huge freaking wake-up call for me, and that should be a huge freaking wake-up call for you. So 10 years ago, I started talking about the rapid acceleration of climate change. I guess after looking at this for so many years and what I was starting to see, I could tell that this thing is accelerating much faster than they said. You'd always hear about, 2050 and then 2075 and 2100. Those years, getting up there is going to be really bad at the end. It's going to be bad now. There isn't going to be a whole lot of more time because what we are seeing. And it isn't, let me make sure everybody understands, climate change is not just hot temperatures. A lot of it is going to be hot. Yes, the oceans, the air, but it's going to be extremes. A lot of things that happen with climate change is because of the way the weather patterns are moving. They're slow. They're hardly moving at all. And that's the reason things had happened just like they did in Oregon. Okay. A high pressure sat over here. It just kept on getting stronger and stronger. Heat kept on building and building. Normally, with a westerly flow, that would have moved out over the ocean, or went over the ocean, or it would gradually go east, and would go east quite quickly. It would never sit around and build. It would, yes, could we get to 95, 98? And then it would kind of push its way on, because we would get an ocean breeze here, and that would cool us down. But it didn't. It just stayed here. And in fact, it's still kind of to the east and to the south of us. That high pressure is still holding on. Luckily, right now, our temperatures are only in the low 70s. Thank God, because we couldn't have taken another day or two, because it could have been even worse. Look at Canada. There's a place in Canada not too far from us, just over the border, which got to 121. And then the next day, freaking wildfire came and burned them down. I mean, that's some crazy stuff. And that's another concern. These wildfires are the West is just, it's got some really tough times ahead of us. We never thought about in Oregon, in this part of Oregon anyways, we never thought much about wildfires. Those are in the mountains, or those were in the east, or those were in California, but they weren't here where we live. But last year we had one within 4 miles of our house. So it was rough. Anyways, with all that exciting stuff to be said, climate change is real. Climate change is accelerating. Climate change is coming. So, I think everyone is aware of climate change. I really do. There's a lot of deniers out there, what causes it, etc. But I think everybody's kind of in agreement. It's happening. A lot of people want to kind of put it away and kick the can down the road, but it is here. And is, again, I will say, it's accelerating. So, man has caused this, his own dismay, demise, I guess we'll call it. And, he's gonna script the ending of mankind on Earth, and climate change will probably do that for him. One of the reasons man is responsible because a strange, I would call it runaway prosperity, with little regard for stewardship of the Earth. It started probably about 150 years ago. Before that, our impact on the planet was minimal at best. But as soon as the Industrial Revolution started, everything has gone not well for the planet itself. So I have grandchildren. I think their future for a reasonable life is quite grim at this point, because climate change is going to tear into societies around the world. There's going to be phantoms. There's going to be droughts. There's going to be people, looking to where they're going to get something to eat and something to drink. And it's going to cause some chaos throughout the planet. And here's where the aliens and ETs come in. And this is kind of the title of what I did, what I'm trying to do here. So during my life of looking at climate change and looking at things that I was interested in, meteorology and climatology, of course, I've been involved and working on researching ETs and aliens, UFOs, et cetera, paranormal, et cetera. So after interviewing probably over 1,500 people, abductees and contactees, here's a little conclusion I've come to as far as climate change is. Since I doubt very much that the ETs and the aliens will help us, even though some of the species that are on our planet or have visited our planet consider us humans as a resource. And we're not going to go into what that means precisely. That's for another video, okay? But I think you can kind of understand what I mean by a resource. Anyways, there's a very strong feeling that the aliens and the ETs are not wanting to be responsible for us. I think a lot of them, there's groups of them, Palladian types, that are pretty upset with us, that we've done what we've done to this planet, and we have allowed it to have this runaway train called climate change happen, and really not concerned about stopping it at this point. I don't think they don't want to be responsible. They don't want to be accountable. They're not going to fix our problems. It's our responsibility to fix our own problems. So with that said, what can we do? What can we do? So there's three things over the years I've been thinking about, and these are the things that I think. And actually, a couple people that I interviewed, some contactees that claim they had contact with alien type, ET type entities, kind of expressed to me, because I actually, at one point, probably 10 years ago, I actually posed that question to them, to the contactees. And this is, and some of this, what I'm going to tell you, the next 3 points that I tell you have some of that incorporated in it. Number one is, if we would go ahead and start immediately and start a project, a goal of planting 1 trillion, that's with a T, 1 trillion trees wherever we can on Earth. I know you're going to say, wow, that's a lot of freaking trees. And it is. Presently, by satellite data, there is probably a little bit over 3 trillion trees on Earth. If we can get 1 more trillion, that would definitely start filtering out and consuming CO2. That is critical, okay? Number 2, we stop all burning, all man-made burning in the Amazon and in Africa. Those are the 2 hot spots which are causing a ton of CO2, okay? We have to stop that. And what we do, not only plant our trees, right? But the rich countries of the world would go ahead and pay for anybody that owns that land, if it's their government, and make those areas reserves. We'll call them clean air reserves. That would be the Amazon, and that would be Africa, the center of Africa. I mean, in the equatorial Africa, where all the trees are. And in the Amazon, obviously, we all know there's a ton of trees. So if we can stop that and save those trees and add more trees, that's going to be huge, huge. Number three is the obvious one. We got to continue with full metal to the pedal, developing wind and solar and other alternate energy sources so we can go as much as possible all electric. And that would be in our cars and everything else we do. Absolutely critical. But those three things, if we could do that and do that quickly, I believe that we can survive this. Now it's still going to be a tough hoe, even if we did those things. Because I think what my feelings has always been, between 10 and 15 years ago, we had passed the tipping point already. So we're already past that. But I think we can survive it. I think humanity can survive it. If humanity doesn't do anything, in the next 15, 20 years as zero, then it doesn't really make any difference how many trees we plant or what we do in any other avenue. It'll be just way too late. And like I said, the ETs and aliens are not coming to help us. They just won't. They just won't come and help us. So I think with all that said, that's about it for today. Please heed the warnings. If you have to go and talk to your congressman or talk to whoever, you got to push this. This is real. This is not anything made up. This is not anything. This is not any fake news. This is the real McCoy, and I've been living it for probably 50 years because I have the unique perspective of understanding climate change and also understanding aliens, UFOs, paranormal, and it's kind of connected in many ways. So anyways, Dimensional Walking, please subscribe if you like us. Dimensionalwalking@gmail.com if you'd like to communicate with us. Leave us a comment. Please subscribe. And thank you very much.